And welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show's Torture Cinema.
It's just it's as if I'd had a child who started out well and then sustained brain damage.
Wait, what? Is that in the movie?
Huh? No, it's a quote about the movie from the writer of the movie.
Oh, wow. So Joe Haldeman said that about his film. You know, because that was my first question, is like, what happened?
Well, I mean, Joe Haldeman, had his issues, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I assume so. I mean, because this is that era when they were, hiring lots of sci-fi writers, and how many of them actually had careers in film? Because, George R. R. Martin at this time was writing stuff, too, right?
Ray Bradbury, I guess.
Yeah, he was probably... he probably was successful because it's Ray Bradbury.
Well, predated even, yeah.
I don't know. It's very weird.
What was that guy? Stanwyck? He had done some...
Successfully?
Yeah, I mean, that was... I mean, fair. No, it's been a thing on and off for years to get, sci-fi writers to come in and, help out with your science fiction movie or TV or whatever, not just selling the IP, which is the easy part because it's yay, free cash. But sure. On the flip side, they're going to take what you wrote and then you won't recognize it, unless you have a really, really good agent.
Nobody does anymore.
I do, but I just haven't gotten any of that sweet, sweet film money yet.
Although, to be fair, some of your work would be fun as shit on film. I'm just saying.
Did I ever tell you about the meeting that I took on the Daedalus incident?
No.
I mean, it's a funny story. So I'm not going to name the agency, but it was one of the big five, okay? And it was in Hollywood, and they're the book guy is well, I want you to come and talk about your book, and I've read it. And I'm sitting there thinking, sure you have. Okay. So I go to the agency, and, it is, of course, all everything you'd expect, all wood panel and brass and everything else. And the receptionist is made of 35% plastic and just okay. And then I go to see the film guy, and I'm super excited. And then I go into the building, and then I go back down the building. Then I go down another hall, and another hall, and another hall, to basically a closet in the back, which is where his office was. And it actually had a ladder going to the roof because there was a fire escape there. And this guy was very excited. His office looked like a disaster, a lot of books everywhere. But he was super excited about the book, and I kind of quizzed him a little bit. He actually read it.
Oh.
Or he actually had an assistant who read it really, really well and wrote an excellent book report. But he minor characters and this and that and what would this take and what it would look like, everything else. And so I left thinking, okay, maybe this guy's in the back of the shop and he's new or whatever, but he's read it, he's passionate about it. Sure, let's see what happens. Let's go out and sell the damn thing. And then 6 months later, he quit the agency to hike the Andes and find himself. And that is the most Hollywood thing that you could ever do. And so, yeah, it was great.
Wow. Well, I mean, at least you went in.
That's as close as I've gotten.
Yeah. Well, at least you didn't go into that meeting with all your hopes up. You went in very, very smartly, which I think is to never have your hopes too high when it comes to Hollywood. Yeah.
No, my agent had prepared me very well, to obviously make a very good impression. But at the same time, was this is very preliminary. just, he'll take it and he'll try to sell it to other people. But of course, instead of doing that, he needed to get that epiphany.
Did he come back from the Andes?
I don't know.
Nobody has seen him since.
That could be the next story.
I gotta look up his name, and I gotta try to find out what happened to him. Because if he's at another agency, I gotta track him down and say, "You owe me. Get to work.
Get to work.
Get to work.
Hey,
you were
remember
stoked
me?
about this, and, and then you went and had a." Yeah, did I cause the midlife? What the heck? Actually, he was younger. It was about a third life, like it wasn't even midlife. Like, what are you doing?
He's seen some stuff, man. And some things.
He tries to sell IP for science fiction. What could he have seen? I mean, maybe he saw some bad stuff. I don't know, but
I mean, he probably saw the Gore novels, and
Okay, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, okay. Anyway, I'm Shaun.
Hi,
I'm Daniel.
And obviously, we have a special guest today, and that guest is the very special, wonderful Michael J. Martinez. Welcome to your torture, Michael.
I mean, this is not the first time I've done it, but I will say this was the most torturous, in my opinion. Like, it was. Yeah, when we're ready to get into it, then I'll unload, and we'll have our little therapy session. But
I mean, you're wrong, but I appreciate that you
this isn't the first time you called me wrong.
Well, hold the fort. Daniel, in the script, do you know you have things written for Mike to do?
Yes.
Does he know
that's
that
why
he's supposed to have things
That's why
to do?
I sent you the link to send to Mike.
Well, shit.
That's why I'm like highly confused right now. What the hell is going on?
Well, because his name's not in the top part. Because he's being introduced as a guest, and so later I look down and there's a bit for Mike to read, but the bit,
yes.
There's okay.
What kind of podcast are you people running here?
Oh, it's a drunk podcast. Well,
he has an entire soliloquy to deliver.
So hold on.
I kind of did. I did a little.
You did. That's fair.
So you're able to see the chat in here, right, Mike?
I mean, he's a pro. He can write his own part.
You'll be reading that in a second. I'll give you your cue.
Cue it up.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
So, our future torture for the month is a film called Robot Jox. I've been saying it's released in 1989, but apparently it wasn't until late 1990s, so I don't know what time is anymore because it says 1989 on the internet. So Daniel wrote this, whatever, it's fine. It's a movie that started in the mid-80s from an idea from director Stuart Gordon, merging the Iliad with the Transformers toy line, developed into a story with SF author Joe Haldeman, who then wrote a screenplay. Filming of Robot Jox finished in 1987, but collapse of producer Charles Band's studio delayed release of the movie until the late 1990, with a blink and you'll miss it theater run. Robot Jox stars Alien Nation's great and science fiction's national treasure, Gary Graham, In Living Color's Anne-Marie Johnson, The Omega Man's Paul Koslow, Scarface's Michael Allridge, Problem Child's Danny Kamakona, I may have mispronounced that, I apologize, and other stars of stage and screen.
And this film was selected by Scifi and Fancy Patreon supporters based on a poll for a second chance for second place of movies that almost got picked in past polls. If you're not yet subscribed to our Patreon, and I'm pronouncing that wrong, Patreon, please join for as little as $1 a month and get a chance to suggest future torture for us and force it upon us by voting in upcoming polls. So yes, you get to torture people.
It's fun.
And we still have a special continuing challenge for some torture that's almost too terrible to contemplate and express. If our Patreon, when our Patreon gets up to $150 a month, we'll do a special torture cinema show on 2019's Cats, a film whose mere unseen rumored existence gives us nightmares. Please tell folks about the show and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth is a big deal for fan-run podcasts. And thank you to all of our supporters.
Please, can I come back for that?
Oh, yes. Anybody that volunteers to watch Cats.
You have to be a sick individual to voluntarily watch that movie, let me tell you.
This is my fourth or fifth torture cinema. So, I mean, yeah, I have seen clips as well. And I think that the mystery of how so many top-notch, A-list, Academy Award-winning actors got roped into that POS and then, got CGI'd with fur. Like, wow. Like, that's a whole other level of torture cinema. Like, that's just like the Bermuda Triangle of torture cinema. It's brilliant. I want in.
I want to know at what stage the actors realized that, where was the event horizon of this where they knew there was no escape?
Okay. I just want y'all to know I will be going on a rant about the horror that is this show, because the musical theater nerd inside me will come out. I'm just telling you right
that's
now.
Another reason I want to do it.
We have to have
this
happen. Yes.
Yeah,
so make it happen, people.
Let's get some.
I have a 25-minute lecture waiting to go on the fly for this freaking thing.
I'm gonna definitely need more alcohol.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of alcohol, we're gonna get on to what we're drinking because we have a movie to talk about. And so, as we'll just note for everybody, because we are imbibing in some cases alcoholic beverages. And we are live on Twitch at the time of this recording, and so we will remind people, drink responsibly, don't drink inappropriately. If you've got a problem, seek help. Do not drink and drive. Do not do anything stupid while you're drinking. If you're underage, technically you're not allowed to drink, and so we can't encourage you to do so please don't. All of the things that go with being responsible with a semi-controlled substance, please be responsible. We are adults, not professionals, but adults. So, yeah. So there you go. So with that in mind, Michael, what are you drinking?
Well, unlike past episodes, I think y'all are going to be very disappointed in me. I'm drinking decaf coffee. I can't even waste my.
That's no disappointment.
I'm not going to waste my alcohol in this movie. Okay,
You're saving it for Cats.
I'm saying, well, the Cats. I mean, I might crack open the 21-year-old. I mean, that just might be a thing. If I was, and if I had all the ingredients handy, I might have mixed up. I might have done this on another episode, but it's a cocktail I call the Wendig, after Chuck Wendig, who posted it on back when Twitter was decent. It's 2 parts apple cider, which is now in season, 1 part lemon juice, 1 part ginger liqueur, and 2 parts bourbon. Stir it up, drink it. It's like apple pie, and it's delightful.
Oh.
And all credit to Mr. Wendig for concocting that one.
That sounds
Man makes a good cocktail. But I'm not going to waste it on this crap.
Well, we're gonna have words in a minute. Okay.
Okay.
And then next up now is Daniel. Daniel, what are you drinking?
So I found a cocktail called the Dirty Robot. And so it is whiskey with a lime and ginger ale. And so I have Johnny Ryan's. And so simple, delicious.
Nice.
I respect that.
Yeah.
And you, Shaun?
Do you
have a robot-themed cocktail? Or?
Oh, I have got the mother of cocktails. Thank you very much. I have made a cocksaw. Because if you've seen this movie, there is in fact a cocksaw inside this movie. So this is a cocksaw. The cocksaw, by the way, and I'm going to say it probably 10 more times because it's very fun to say, the cocksaw. The cocksaw is a cocktail of my own invention. It has within it Del Fuego tequila, which is like a chili tequila of some kind. It has Cointreau. It has salted caramel syrup. and a little bit of orange, like generic. I just have generic, but basically like a LaCroix for the bubbly. It is very tasty. It is almost as good as being attacked by a cocksaw.
You'll have to talk about that experience at some point.
Have you never talked about a cocksaw before, Mike?
This will be a first.
This would be your first talk about a cocksaw?
Yeah.
No.
So as the resident cocksaw expert, Shaun, can one wield a cocksaw, like deploy a cocksaw while also drinking a cocksaw?
Yes. If anything,
Okay.
actually, that is manufacturer's recommended specifications for the use of a cocksaw.
It's in the user guide.
It's in the user
Yes.
guide, yeah. So Alexander, actually, we don't see it. They shoot away from it because they didn't want in Robot Jox to encourage underage drinking. But when the cocksaw comes out, he's actually just takes a full-on shot of one of these.
That wouldn't surprise me. And in fact, because the actor was in this movie, I'm surprised he wasn't drunk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he probably is mildly intoxicated most of the time. He's a Russian stereotype, so...
I mean, and one that somehow, like, in the middle of this Cold War, they go and drink together at a bar. I guess in Death Valley
Yes.
or Alaska or somewhere.
In a post-apocalyptic world, yeah.
It's
right.
weird.
And we don't know it's a post-apocalyptic world except for people wearing painters' masks.
They tell us in the opening crawl that there was a nuclear war.
No, they tell us, but like that seems to have been the only effect of this global catastrophe is that we now all basically have to wear painters' masks. Not even like KN95s because they weren't around then, but like
They have to
stuff
ask
you'd
each
wear
other
in, like,
how
shop
bad it
class.
is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, like
okay,
smoggy.
we're gonna have
they
a
were-
conversation.
They're worried about the outside.
So,
I mean, I lived in LA, so was I. Like,
okay, I just want to say I'm going to do the summary for this movie because I don't trust either of you two assholes to do it.
you don't want mine.
No.
Yeah, you
because-
don't want, because I would just get increasingly more and more angry as I was describing this movie and the plot, and I would just be yelling and cursing throughout the whole thing.
I will do the summary of this movie before we get to our likes and dislikes, you bastards. Okay. Robot Jox. Excuse me, I may have had a little bit.
Okay.
Robot Jox is a film that is wildly underappreciated. It takes place some point 50 years in the future after there has been a nuclear holocaust. Mankind has been incredibly destroyed, and so there's now been an agreement among the nations that any territorial dispute between nations must be sorted through basically a form of single-hand combat. In this case, with giant robots. I repeat that for all the kids who think that's really cool. Giant freaking robot fights is how they solve all of their territorial disputes. There's basically the like American style, Western influenced like market side, and then there's like the Soviet Russian Confederation, and they're the ones that are always doing these fights. In the midst of all of that, there is a conversation being had about how do we produce the best possible pilots. And so we have on the one hand the sort of old school biological kinds who are just like raised like normal and are just really good and rely on quote unquote luck. And then there are the genetically modified kinds that both sides we learn are engaged in trying to find like the perfect genetic soldier, eugenics, yay. So the story is that Alexander, who is on the side of the Confederation, loves to just kill him. When you win a battle, you're not supposed to kill them. You're just supposed to, they're defeated, it's over, and the territory is won for your side, and then you move on. He just likes to kill them. And so he has killed multiples, and this is building up to a fight with our main character of Achilles, played by the science fiction great and national treasure Gary Graham. Achilles is a biological. He is a character who is very much about the old school way of doing it. His like coach, as it were, is a guy by the name of Tex. We'll get back to him at another point, not in this summary. But he is kind of getting tired of all of the fighting because it's violent and he's only got a contract for 10 fights. He gets in a fight. Alexander shoots off one of his fists and Gary Graham basically like uses himself to protect the people, but it doesn't work because they're spectators for reasons we don't know, and he ends up causing the deaths of many, 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 many people, and so he quits. And then there's a whole big to-do about how Alexander's really mad and blah, 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 blah. And then one of the, like, genetically modified Tubies wants to take the role, and he's like, no, I must come back. It must stop you from doing it because you're hot, and I actually kind of like you, and maybe we're going to bone and make babies later. And they don't do that, but it would be nice if they, I don't know, maybe we had a romance in here, but whatever. Anyway, the whole thing basically leads to a final confrontation between Alexander and Achilles. And I'm sure we'll talk about the ending later, but that's the basic story. There's drinking.
I mean, that was very factual and sort of managed to elide just how horrible it was.
No. This movie is great. Oh my God.
It glossed over all the details that bring anger.
Like I'd what? Say. Give me one, for instance.
Well, we'll get to it when we get to the dislikes, I think.
No. You're going to give it to me right now because I want to tell you why you're wrong.
What is her name? Athena. Athena's whole character just angers me.
Why?
Because of her character arc.
What?
I mean, where she goes, how she ends up being in relation to, what's his name? Achilles.
Yeah. Played by science fiction national treasure Gary Graham. Yeah.
Well, that it's going to be one of my other dislikes.
Okay. Fine.
You can just get ready to. But I do want to say that I think it was really fitting watching this movie on Tubi while hearing all the discussion of the Tubies.
Oh, that's a good point.
I thought it was perfectly fitting.
Yeah.
I mean, that was actually one of my likes. Tubies on Tubi.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Like that was it though.
But we're not supposed to call them Tubies. It's kind of offensive, guys.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose that was another aspect of the world building that was kind of there, sort of dropped in, glossed over.
I'd agree it's mostly glossed over. Yeah, it's an idea that's presented, but they don't really want to follow through on... I mean, it's an 85-minute movie. It's really not that long, and they try to pack too many things in, I think, which is maybe its main issue, in my opinion.
I mean, one of.
You're so mean.
I mean, it is... Look, I couldn't even rouse myself to be angry at this movie. This movie was the equivalent of facing your own mortality. It is staring into the abyss. It is just...
I thought I hated it.
Crushing ennui. I don't know what to tell you.
It's okay. You can let your feelings out.
Gary is a national treasure. And yes. I'm sure he was there thinking, could be my Star Wars. This could be my Star Trek. This could be, I don't know, maybe it was gambling debts. I don't know, and he just needed the job. But he is a national treasure, and every single actor in this film is completely and utterly wasted. Just sadly, like, given either too little to do or a lot of crap to do, like, you know, and you could tell, like, somebody wanted to try, somebody remembered they went to acting school at some point, and like they're trying to bring it, and the director's probably sitting there going, just flex more, make that funny face you do again, you know, like that was it.
Wait, you mean Gary Graham's really sexy face that he makes?
I mean, well, first of all, one of the other likes I had was Gary Graham's scar. Like
Gary Graham's what?
Scar on his face.
Oh, scar.
Oh, yeah, the scar.
Yeah.
No, it should have had its own credit.
Okay. Well, look, let's get to likes because I'm sure we're gonna have a fight later about the dislikes. So, we'll start with you, Mike. What is a thing that you liked that was not that you watched it on Tubi and they were called Tubies?
Okay. There wasn't a heap, to be honest. It was... we were just talking about this earlier. I don't remember if we hit record yet or not. It was in attitude such an 80s movie. Like it was very peak 80s. In terms of the actual special effects, it was roughly 1967. But for attitude and sort of like stretchy costuming and everything else, like it was very peak 80s. I swear I saw a headband. Definitely like the people in the bar who were wearing like somebody went to town. Somebody like smoked something and decided to do the costumes there, and it was great. So yeah, I just in some ways, just the vibe of it, not the look of it, because the look of it was horrible, but the vibe of it was very sort of, I had flashbacks to like, high school, middle
Some
and high
people
school.
would say that's
So there
not
you go.
good.
And that was a good thing.
Yeah.
I did all right. I'm still here. There,
Mike, wait, hold on.
I expected a power ballad actually. There was, I think we had an opportunity for a power ballad that we did not get. Like, how Top Gun, they had the, dun, 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 like they had that opportunity and
yeah.
they didn't do it. Nowhere near enough electric guitar. That's just,
They
like
could have had a great.
You could have hired some kid down the street in a band,
appear in the bar scenes, right?
Right, just
like happy
whatever.
Bars, yeah.
Like
I would
some
agree.
bad synth.
Yeah.
But in any event, 80ness.
Yeah, the 80s-ness, I think it is. I mean, this film is at that like weird like point between the 80s and 90s where like 90s culture has not emerged yet, but 80s they're like doing this like weird merge past each other, and it is kind of weird that there is a like 80s like imagining of the future dance scene in here of like them doing like with some weird music with a bizarre beat of like, this is what the music of the future will sound like after a post-apocalypse, right? And yet, unlike other films, it like only does that briefly just to hint at it, and then it's just like, but we don't want to commit too much to this vision because we might have to actually think it through, and so it just like drops it. Like, so we get the one dance scene with like the hippie, like their like weird futuristic music, and then it walks away. But it is a thing that like 80s movies love to do, is like, oh, what's the future really like? What would the future be like? It's just why you get like the Cybertruck now that everybody makes fun of is like, well, that's because it looks like something the 80s would have made, but it's made by people living in our time, not people living in the 80s thinking about what the future might look like.
Yet they do none of that.
You had such great.
They do none of that's for socio-political.
Yeah.
I mean, you also had some really good movies out of the 80s that actually were really thoughtful about a dystopian, potentially, terrible future. I mean, and this film happened after that, and like they didn't even bother to steal it. Like the sets looked like just sort of a knockoff of like, what if they decided to have like, Friends do an episode in science fiction? It was just very blank wall, and the bar was, I mean, they didn't even use a real bar. It was a soundstage. But it was very 80s in that regard. It was, I mean, they almost look like sitcom sets.
Yes. Yeah. A little bit.
I mean, I understand, like, this thing had like a $10 million budget. Like, I mean, you can't even get craft services now in Hollywood for $10 million.
No. Yeah.
But this, I mean, it only made $1 million. Like,
oh yeah.
Wow.
It was a bomb.
Absolute terror.
Yeah.
Anyway, 80s.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Yeah, that's very interesting. Like, it is a film that, like, so part of the thing, if I'm sure folks have looked this up, and if you haven't, like, there are like two competing visions in the making of this film. There is like Joe Haldeman's vision, where he wants to make it a little bit more grounded and real, which makes sense because it's Joe Haldeman. And then there's I forget the other guy's name, the other like writer's
Stuart
name.
Gordon.
Yeah, who's like trying to make like Saturday morning cartoon type stuff. Like he wants big robots that fight, and like, he wants that vision, and the technology is maybe not quite there to really make that work here. And so you have these two competing visions. And so there's all the serious stuff over here, which is clearly Joe Haldeman. And then there's all the like, but robots with cock saws smashing each other around. That's this guy over here. And it does feel like a film that would be benefited from if they had just sat down and went, okay, which parts from your side, the cocksaw side, are we going to keep? And which sides of the more serious are we going to keep? And let's figure out the like nice mesh in the middle. Because there are moments of this where it's like, oh, really serious sci-fi concept stuff. Let's really explore the idea. And then there are moments of like, here's a cocksaw, let's enjoy it. And those two ideas sometimes don't mesh terribly well.
I find Stuart Gordon's interest in this film really baffling because, I mean, he's well known for doing respected works of horror, particularly like Lovecraft adaptations, cult films like Castle Freak. They have a grittiness to them, a shock value to them. This, like, what made that guy want to make a movie about the Transformers? I'd be curious to know what was going through his mind, because he's not known for childlike things per se outside of this. So I found that surprising.
I can tell you. Every child.
What is it?
Every male child born before 2000 has deep within them a love of giant robots.
I had no interest in them whatsoever.
You're wrong, and I know you're wrong because they're buried within you. You must let it out. Mike, you can confirm, right? When you saw like Robotech or Transformers or I'm sure, other big robot-y stuff, like when you saw
the wasn't there a tabletop role-playing game in the 70s and 80s that was basically build your mech and like battle each other? Like it was totally a thing.
Yeah.
And I guess it's there, but yeah, this is tonally several different movies.
Yeah.
And combined with just, I've never seen a film that had such a how do I put this? Like, you could see the accountants behind the scenes counting pennies. Like, no. We can't afford to actually make this look post-apocalyptic. Like this, we had a set from Who's the Boss, and we just have to use that.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Well, all of the post-apocalyptic scenes that are at the beginning were apparently shot as the teaser to try to attract investors. So they did their best work for the opening minute of the film, got investors, and then went to the Who's the Boss set, I think.
I mean, wow, that's ballsy.
And that shows, right?
I mean, it totally shows, because I was definitely like, all right, they put some thought into here. Like, there's some, because I had done my research before that, and I'm like, that first minute, I'm like, maybe they used their budget pretty well. Okay. No, they blew like that $12 million budget. Like, easily, like half of that was spent in the first minute. Like, what the hell? And then you just had poor Gary running around in spandex for the rest of it, and then just bad Harryhausen sort of.
No. This was Gary Graham's sex icon period. Thank you.
We all love Gary. He's
Mr. Graham.
He was our Vulcan. He's Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham. But
do we need to apologize to Mr. Graham?
You two, I'm on first name basis with Gary Graham, but you're not, okay?
I honestly, if we talk to him, which would be impossible, sadly, since he's passed, I think he'd want to apologize to us.
I don't know that he would.
He'd be like, look, I needed the money. Just I was a Vulcan on Enterprise. I did a whole bunch of other really cool stuff. And, just let this one slide, okay, guys?
I mean, it's worth remembering. I know, I realized Daniel, I don't think has actually gone because we just, lost track of everything. But it's probably worth pointing out that, Gary Graham's basically a TV actor, and he comes out of an era where being a TV actor actually means something very specific. That's basically what you do. Your efforts to get into film are like really hard. He basically seals himself as like a TV and like B movies actor because he does things like Alienation, Enterprise, other kinds of shows. He has a steady career up until his death. But like that era is like gone now, where we think of there being a separation between the TV actor and the movie actor. Like you can now be both. You can be a serious TV actor and a serious movie actor, but there was a point in time, this era, where like the idea that somebody could go from TV and transition, like, yeah, Will Smith does it, but like he's an exception to the rule. Most people don't leave TV.
Right. It was like TV was like the minor leagues for movies. And if you graduated to movies like Will Smith, George Clooney, that was a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like a graduation, like moving up in scale. I mean, it's kind of unfair because, let's be real, we're all influenced by TV, like to a massive degree, but that's a whole other thing. Daniel, your like, please.
I only had 2 likes that I could come up with for this movie.
Okay.
One real quick, the music. The music is actually pretty good. It has a nice soundtrack. But the other thing, that the one moment of the film where I kind of like sat up and was like, oh, this is cool, this is interesting, is the scene where the genetically engineered test tube humans that some don't consider really human are given the challenge of, you need to climb up this elaborate, weird looking pipe structure. And the first one who gets up to the top and gets through the red door wins and gets to be the person that pilots the giant robot. And they all look at it and it's like, it looks weird, but it looks simple. You just climb up like the monkey bars and get up pass through the door in the ceiling. And then it starts and like the room's shaking. There's all these alarms and noises to distract you. You start fighting each other and then, oh shit, like the bars are going to like burn your hands and electrocute you and make you fall to your, like, I don't know, did they die from the fall, some of them, or at least get very injured? So that whole scene I thought was kind of cool and clever. And I liked that idea of the torture version of testing their skills.
I mean, it's very Ender's Game when you think about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
it's nothing new to sci-fi, I don't think. And from Ender's Game, and I'm guessing Haldeman in his fiction has things like that as well. Not that I have read his, including his, what is his famous work? It has something to do with
Holy
war.
shit, what is
Forever
happening
War.
right now?
It was the Forever War? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no. I think I may have actually read that one. Anyway.
Hold
I'm
whoa,
sure it's
no,
been
no,
used
no.
before, but I still found it cool.
No. Did you just seriously say that you weren't sure what Haldeman's most significant work was right now? Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was maybe the Forever War, but I knew it had something to do with war.
No,
I think you're in trouble now.
Yeah.
No, you're not really. But it is the Forever War. I would say the Forever War is considerably more rooted in Haldeman's military experience than this film is rooted in anything we would call military.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that. Anyway.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Okay. Me, I guess, is a like, because I'm sure you guys are really rearing to talk about how much you hate this movie and make me cry. Just a little bit.
What did you like most about it?
I'll be honest.
Other than Gary Graham.
I do really like Gary Graham. I have a soft spot for Gary Graham because of Alienation, and I have a soft spot for Alienation because it is among a series of TV shows my grandmother introduced me to when I was a kid that helped sort of cement sci-fi as a thing I love. And Alienation's one of those. Quantum Leap is a different one, and there's a bunch of other, not necessarily genre things like Columbo. I have on DVD almost entirely because of my grandma, because I love Columbo. And Gary Graham, is really important to me because he's in so many things that I love. Even Enterprise, I really like Star Trek Enterprise a lot, even though a lot of people hate it. But whatever. Right? But that's not the reason. Yeah. Oh, well, you and I can be friends. It's great. The thing I think I like most about this film is actually the opening crawl. Because I think that sets a tone for a movie that doesn't quite match up what that tone is, but it is a very well done sequence that made me just really excited the first time I saw this movie. And even now, when I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Other than like the guy narrating to us, like what's happened. I'm not a big fan of that in films in general, but like just this like slow pan shot and like parts of robots flying into the scene and crashing and on flames and smoke and all of these kinds of images. You know, it's a very relatively simple shot. It's probably not that expensive to make, but it to me was a very effective sequence for establishing the movie, the kind of movie that ultimately this wants to be. And I was just immediately hooked. Like immediately I was like, oh, we're gonna have giant robots fight. Parts are gonna fly everywhere. It's gonna be kind of violent and like really exciting and like very anime. And that's the movie I'm getting with some political subtext, which is fun.
So you're just like the investors that they use that footage for.
This would have worked
to get
on
the money,
me.
right?
100%.
It would have worked on you.
Yeah, 100%. I would have been mad if I had seen the ending of this movie, but we'll come back to that in a minute, I'm sure. But mostly that opening sequence, I think, is just very good. And you can see, like, there's a reason why Pacific Rim gets compared to this movie a lot, or this movie to Pacific Rim, because, like, Pacific Rim does all of the special effects related stuff more effectively, and that's because the technology is more on its side and it has a higher budget. Like, the robot fights are just frankly cooler in Pacific Rim. They just are. We can sit here and argue until we're blue in the face about, but no, realistically, yeah, they are. The robot fights in this are subpar. But, you know, if they had just talked to the Japanese, they could have fixed this.
They
went after the wrong investors.
They did. They should have gone after
Japanese. They're less than the 1970s
investors.
Godzilla.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, what if they had just done...
They're similar in style to the 70s Godzillas, but not quite as well, the 70s portrayed.
Godzilla, like, Godzilla moves. And I'm sure this is going to come up in the dislikes, but fuck it, we're going to bring it up now. The robots in this don't really move. No, they really don't. And I think you solve that problem by just abandoning the idea of, like, these things that absolutely 100% look like they're as tall as they actually are, and you just have suits with people in it, and you just shoot those a little bit more carefully to convey the size of them. And then you just do some close-up shots of cock sauce, and like, that's fine. You're getting a lot of cock sauce.
That's the word of the day, people. Cock saw.
The word of the day, cock saw. It's in the Merriam-Webster.
Is it?
I'm gonna check.
Okay.
Anyway, shall we move on to dislikes, I guess?
Yes.
Oh, please.
It's in the Urban Dictionary.
Does it cite Robot Jox?
No, it does not. And that's unfortunate because all of the things, I just don't feel comfortable reading these out loud, so I'm not gonna.
We'll
this
just
one's
encourage
fun.
viewers.
A cocksaw, a particularly vindictive woman bent on humiliation.
That's not nice.
Okay. Anyway, I can now get... Oh, by the way, thanks, Urban Dictionary, I can get a cocksaw mug.
Yes. I think that's your Christmas gift sorted.
We've lost Shaun.
I'm not gonna lie.
Shaun's gone bye-bye.
I might buy it.
Wow.
I'm such a child.
All right. Throw out the cocksaw, reel it in.
Can somebody send me $32.95, please?
Yeah.
What, $32.95 for a cocksaw mug?
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Is it shaped? Or is it just a mug with it sort of printed on it?
Is it shaped like a cocksaw?
And you want to drink out of that? Okay.
It's just Alexander's robot shoving his cocksaw up and you sip out of the end.
Oh, God. All right, dislikes while Shaun is recovering.
Whew, I think we all need a minute here. That's just too much cocksaw. I'm actually just really enjoying him absolutely breaking down. For people who are listening to the audio only, Shaun has absolutely lost his shit. Like, he is just a laughing mass of quivering joy over cocksaws.
I know somebody from my old university that has a 3D printer, so I can make this happen, guys.
There we go.
Okay.
I think you need to bring it to the episode where, if we get to do cats.
Yeah, I'll bring my cocksaw mug to the cats.
I mean, honestly, it's the only way to improve cats.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, Mike,
Shaun
what's your
continues
dislike,
to lose
please?
it. Oh, God. I mean,
we haven't
there is
gotten him
such
onto
a
the floor
list.
yet here.
I do think, like, if you're gonna make a movie about giant robots, okay, like, how could you think to skimp so much in a movie made in 1986, 1987? Like, the 80s gave us good science fiction movies, believable special effects. Like, you had Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. You had Wrath of Khan. You had Blade Runner. You had so many good ones. And then somehow somebody thought that you could get away with this travesty. Like, this is, to your point, it would have been better off if you had just strapped some guys in a suit, put them on a set that was to scale, and at least had them fight. Because, like, if you have giant robots, okay, you want to see them punch each other. At this point, they are just kind of like standing next to each other, and then you see like the fist launch, and it's sort of like there's an explosion, and I swear to God, you can see the wire of that thing just, going across. It is the cheapest stuff. It is my 20-year-old daughter's in art school, and she could do better.
I agree.
Than what this movie gave us. It's like this was somebody's backyard. What did they spend them? $10 million is not an insignificant amount of money back in the 80s. What did they spend it on? Because they did not spend it on directing. They did not spend it on special effects. Maybe it was all the music, man. But still, we missed the power ballad. Just like it's so like there's a scene where, and I think what really sealed the deal for me, which just I stopped being angry and just stopped feeling, where they went into space. And we have had a lot of stuff, even dating back from the 70s, that went into space. And it was good. Like, you were there. Even if you look at the original cut of, the first Star Wars, like, yeah, maybe it was a little slow and a little creaky, but overall you could get into it. Like, this was like Saturday morning cartoon bad.
This was like Superman
also, it was
4
inexplicable that they were
Peace.
going into space, but like, why did the robots go to space, and how did they land exactly where they started? In combating each other, like, I got questions there. But yeah, no, just the special effects are a crime, and they really are circa late 1960s. And who on God's green earth thought that would even fly even then? It's just you had that, to your point, Shaun, you had this great opening sequence, and then everything else was just incredibly disappointing after that. Like, I mean, you had the robot part falling in the snow, and it sort of splooshed a little bit, and you had snow, and like, and then you're just served up this crap. So,
I agree.
I mean, I started hopeful, went to anger, and then just by the end, numb. Just numb.
I'm
just not getting those 96 minutes back.
I agree that they just did not deliver on the robot fights that the title and the opening sequence presents. I 100% agree.
And the poster and like the whole premise, like I need to see robot fighting.
I mean, that is the poster, right? Like the poster of which people are seeing on the screen if they're watching the video version, they're seeing like one of the posters for this. It's literally two kind of awkward looking robots, giant machines about to fight each other. And like, that's kind of what we expect. And the thing is, there is a way to do this that does not require substantial amounts of special effects. You just use some clever shooting tactics where you don't show the whole machine moving, you show parts, like little close-up shots of things. At least that conveys some kinetic energy. But like, there's literally one of the first fights we see after the opening sequence, right, where admittedly we don't actually see the fight, we just see the parts flying everywhere, right, and then we see the like robot leg crush the guy to death. But like one of our first actual fights, like they spend the first 5 minutes of it like shooting rockets at each other and then slowly walking and throwing a punch. It's
not
there's
great.
you can't have that. You cannot have robot fights that are slower than two ships trying to catch each other from opposite ends of the ocean. Like if Pirates of the Caribbean can have two ships go side by side at the speed ships move and have that be fairly energetic and exciting, you should be able to do that here.
So to that point, why do they have spectators that are willing to sign off like their lives or, you know, sign off any waivers of being injured to watch these fights? Because you're in like stands next to these two giant robots, and the only thing the robots do is fall. So it's not, you're not even watching a battle, really. You're just like hoping you're positioned in a place where the robot doesn't fall.
See, what would have been interesting, what would have been interesting is obviously because they did not have the special effects to put a force shield around the spectators or blast doors or something like that. You could have gone the Hunger Games route where it's like, you will come and you will root for the Russians or America in the desert. Again, we're in Death Valley, so like that's totally where I want to go and watch sports. Mm-hmm. You know, so you could have been like, you will cheer and you will risk your lives and have a robot fall on you. But apparently, because, you know, Achilles was so torn up, just spoilers, folks, like in the first robot fight, the Russian wins and Achilles' robot falls on a grandstand full of people. And they had, of course, an entire desert in which to fight, but no, they fought right next to the grandstand because putting on a good show or just devaluing human life. And Achilles' robot falls on the grandstand and crushes several dozen men, women, and children. And he feels super bad about it. It's like, take the fight somewhere else. Seriously, dude.
Yeah.
I just, that was just really poorly manufactured drama, you know, in terms of like, oh, we got to make him, you know, fall on a bunch of people. And of course there's going to be grandstands full of people watching this with only sort of, I don't know, a sunshade over them. I don't even know what that was. Was it supposed to help with the radiation? Was it just...
It's supposed to
as much as the masks.
But yeah. I guess it doesn't really protect them from a whole-ass robot falling on it.
That's what I thought at first, though. Like, he's going to bounce off the thing. That's what's protecting the crowd from having a robot fall on them and kill them. No, that was just for show. The robot is going to fall and kill you. I think, you know, they show, like, the people screaming and small children running and then, you know, smack. And then, of course, he feels bad about it until he gets angry enough, and then he doesn't. Like,
well, because he doesn't want Athena to die because he in his mind is convinced that the Tubies are not prepared in the same way he is. And he also, I think the implication in the film is like he kind of likes her a little bit and he wants to protect her. And I can't tell if that's because he finds her attractive and it's a hot thing, or he thinks of her like a child and it's like he's protecting a kid, because I think the film is confused on which that is. Yes, yeah. Well, I agree.
Neither of those are great. It's a little bit troublesome, isn't it?
Well, I guess it's better if it's like, you know, they're not really prepared because they are effectively kind of like children. You know, they don't have world experience. They think they're capable, like they're presented as very childlike in the film, Right. They're very arrogant. They think, oh, I know, right? I can do this. I'm totally better than you because I've been told my whole life that I am special. And realistically, are they? They may have the physical skills, but do they have any of the intuition? I think that's what the film wants us to think about. It maybe doesn't get it across as effectively as if I had just written it. I think it would be more effective, but that's the thing
I didn't
I
catch
got.
half of that in the viewing. I think you put a lot of thought in there because like
Yeah, I did.
you just those are great ideas and great concepts that
Yeah.
half of that shit didn't even surface for me in this travesty. I'm just sitting there going,
Well,
okay.
look, some of us are film connoisseurs, and we really look at the very close
You
images.
picked
and
Robot Jox. I just really want to like Mr. Connoisseur over here.
I didn't pick this. Hold on. No. You can't take that on me. I didn't pick this. I put it on the poll because it had been on a previous poll. Other people picked
all
this.
y'all viewers out there, like, thank you. Thank you so much.
But,
no, look, it's for somebody like Haldeman and he of course famously disavowed it. It's right on his Wikipedia page. Like it's just sad. Like this is a terrible script.
I don't know. I don't
terrible
quite agree.
script.
I don't quite agree, but to each
it
their
doesn't.
own.
I mean, like it's not a terrible plot. Let's be real. Like that is there is a movie in there somewhere. It's just not what we saw. But the plot, the story, there's a there. The script is crap.
Look,
does not. It's full of like. Anyway, that was my second dislike, so I'll stop.
Before we move to you, Daniel, I just want to note I will agree that this is no Mac and Me in terms of its brilliance. And,
oh my God!
And so,
here we go.
Daniel, if you would like to tell us your dislike, please.
Jeffrey Combs is woefully underutilized in this movie.
Really?
He appears briefly. I was sad that Gary Graham, who I had no idea who that was. Now that I realize he was in Enterprise, I know him from that and loved him in that. I never saw Alien Nation. So, like, I was just sad Jeffrey Combs wasn't the star of the movie. But my actual real dislike is just the whole character of Athena, how she ends up... It comes down to, like Mike said, the script. At the beginning, we find out that Tex, the character of Tex, is a total asshole. And he like disparages and insults like 5 different groups of people, I think, within the first 5 minutes that we see him, including the fact that he's just like one big giant walking stereotype. But at the same time, one of those that he insults is women and doesn't think, it's not that he has a problem with the Tubies, it's that beyond that, he just doesn't think a woman could possibly be the pilot. Yeah. And it almost seems that Achilles is with him on that. He feels the same way. And so you get this baffling kind of thing where it seems like Achilles doesn't have concern. The reason why he's concerned and goes back to fight again is either because he's attracted to her, because that's the only thing that seems to interest her. In fact, I think the first thing he says is she probably can't do anything, but at least she's nice on the eyes. Or he doesn't think a woman could possibly do this, and so he needs to step back in again because she can't. And either of those isn't really an endearing reason for it. But then beyond that, she, at the beginning, I was loving her character because she doesn't put up with crap and she fights back against the stereotypes. She asserts her own authority about things. But then when her position becomes threatened because he steps back in, her response is just to totally like go rogue and take the robot for herself and do the fight for herself, but then she fails immediately and he has to step in and win it because she has failed. And she's just like she doesn't show up again. She's gone from the movie. And so I thought that the script did a terrible job of utilizing that character, of doing anything effective with it to make you as an audience member actually care. She was just there as a plot point to make him look, I don't know, to give him a way to step away and then come back again. It was as manufactured as that, that audience that he fell on, or the robot fell on, to make him step away. She was manufactured just to make him come back in again with no real reason.
Okay, I'm gonna help you.
That's why I got angry when I was watching this, because it could have been so much more. I thought
it's okay.
Right.
I'm gonna help you right now, Daniel.
Tell me why I'm wrong.
So part of the problem is you don't understand the science fiction treasure, national treasure that is Gary Graham. Gary Graham. No, so like I know I'm being facetious and like being silly, but like legitimately, Gary Graham's career is made up of a bunch of different roles that, ironically, for his own, at least by the era in which he worked, considered fairly conservative. His own conservative politics, he tended to play characters who were not trying to be on the wrong side of history, but like always found themselves on that like weird liminal space. This is especially prevalent in Alien Nation, which is a show I actually wish more people would watch. It's maybe not terribly subtle, but it's about a guy who is prejudiced about the alien, the newcomers. He's very prejudiced against them, but he also like sees the excesses of what prejudicial people do, bigoted people are doing, where they're engaged in violence and like civil rights violations, and he's like, that's hot bullshit. And so he's always on that edge of like, I am prejudiced, but I am not so closed off that my mind can't be changed. And this film, it's admittedly short because it's 85 minutes long, so they do not get the same development that they do in Alien Nation, which I think he gets to really show his acting chops a bit more here, of playing that character, which he does multiple times in his career. This film is about that same thing. He does have prejudice, but unlike Tex Conway, who is this stereotypical, like, portly Texan sexist, misogynist, racist, like, you name it. He's all the things, like, in one package with the hat and everything, right? Who's also a backstabbing bastard. Fuck you, Tex. Like, yeah, he says things where he kind of agrees with them, but, like, you can always see in those scenes where he never says it the same way. He never says it quite like Tex says it. He kind of agrees, but he's, like, there's never, like, a full commitment to the, like, Tex Conway. He's also not fully committed at the beginning to the other side, right? Which is like that like scientist lady who's kind of insane and looks like she has possible issues. Where she's so convinced the like genetically modified humans are like the answer to all the problems. But it's through his interactions with Athena where his mind is clearly changed, because he does care for Athena. What that care is maybe not fully illuminated in the story, which you, Daniel, are correct to point out, and Mike, you have also correctly pointed out. I think it's more Athena is playing on his sexuality, but he actually mostly views them as children, because the way they behave is frankly like children throughout the story. They throw tantrums, they react to things in a very volatile, emotionally volatile way, in a way that other characters don't. The Japanese character, for example, Dr. Matsumoto, played by Danny Kamakona, who is like very measured by comparison. If you just like look at him as a comparison to almost any of the Tubi people, they're presented as incredibly childish, like teenagers, right? Basically, like they're in this weird transitionary phase. So for me, it's looking at that career history of Gary Graham and what were like basically the stereotype of his career of what he played, which is always that liminal, prejudicial character on the cusp of not being such a prejudiced asshole anymore, but needing that extra push. That's what this film is doing. It's playing with that idea. So yeah, like I agree that in the end it would be nice if like maybe after he did his, I'm going to come back to it in a minute, but his like stupid Jox fist bump bullcrap with Alexander, maybe if he like went and like checked on her to make sure she was okay, and that was the ending of the story, to kind of show like, oh, maybe her arrogance. She's like, I was a little arrogant, but he's like, no, but like you did good. It's just like Alexander's freaking insane, and like he's like at a completely different level, and you've never been in here before. Like experience is as valuable as training, and that's the lesson she needs to learn. But also remembering that he is not also always right either. That he was behaving in a way that she accuses him of at one point of just like giving up, and maybe he shouldn't as well. Like there is a story to be told there. I'm guessing they ran out.
But none of it's in the fucking movie.
No, I agree.
Thank you. Like, Shaun, this is all great and would have made for a great movie. But you had to read in Gary's entire career and several other things that just weren't in the damn picture. Like
they're there.
Yeah, but like you kind of have to. Like, I don't want to have to work that hard. Like I like there are definitely shows and movies where you're like, oh, you were close, and I see what you were trying to do there.
Yeah.
Gosh, I like you because you tried, even if you didn't get there. These folks didn't try. Like there's so much throwaway stuff there that just you're like, in Gary's whole arc, is he attracted to her? Does he see her as like a child? Either way, there's like, weirdness about it all. And
I mean, she is confusing. She's an adult woman who is very attractive, but she's also probably 4.
And yeah, but it is confusing, but it's also really, it's sort of laid there. It's laid
Nothing's
there.
done with it. Nothing's.
Shaun, you're picking it up and you're kind of running with it. You're like extrapolating what this movie could have been, and just all the things that, there are themes buried in there somewhere that Joe probably placed in there, back 15 versions prior. What we see in the shooting script is like just disjointed gobbledygook. Just sort of like, oh wait, we laid this here, and we were, like, it's like Chekhov's gun, and they never found it. They never used it again. And it's just littered with guns. Well, you had to dig. You had to dig, Shaun. You were digging so hard.
You do know I have a PhD, a professional horseshit degree, right?
I know you do, and I know you want to like this movie because it's like giant robots, and it's just like what's just sad about it is, possibly with the exception of our national treasure, Gary, Mr. Graham.
Yeah, you're not a first name.
Nobody else tried. Nobody tried. Like, nobody tried here. The set dressers didn't try. Maybe the costume people tried, but they were high as hell at the time.
Or they had no money.
The music guy did okay. He was probably somebody's nephew, trying to make a big break. But nobody else tried to do anything approaching a professional job in this film.
So is the end of this your dislike, Shaun?
Yeah, so...
Is it the thumbs up?
Can we do... Who's to the left or right of me? Can we,
I don't know.
This for the...
We'll see here.
There you go.
Whichever way it looks.
Bullshit.
I can't do it to anybody on the screen, so I don't know what it is for all of you. You two can actually do it to each other on my screen. So, yeah.
It's
anyway,
horrifying.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The plot of this movie makes it very, very abundantly clear that Alexander, the like Russian stand-in character, because he's a Russian and he's a stereotype, he is ultra violent. He loves violence. He just wants to commit violence. He doesn't do this for any sort of national patriotic notions, right? He doesn't care about the territory. He's there for mayhem and destruction. He wants to kill people in these fights. And that's the whole story, the whole thing. And the number of interactions we have between Gary Graham's Achilles and Alexander, played by Paul Kozlow, that give us anything about their relationship is totally antagonistic. Gary Graham, his character Achilles, is presented to us very clearly as a person who will do violence, but doesn't really, he doesn't enjoy it. He doesn't like it. It's not fun for him. Even in the training sessions, it's like there's a point of like, all right, we've done enough. Like this is done. If you keep doing it, it's like too much. Like this hyper competitive, violent nature is not him. And he makes that very clear multiple points throughout the story. Alexander is the opposite. He loves a good violence. He loves to poke people's buttons. We literally, the first time we meet Alexander, he crushes a man to death. And despite being told, the match is over, you've won, you can stop, you don't need to kill the guy, he does it anyway. So when you get to the end of the movie...
He's a psychopath.
He's a psychopath, basically. He's presented as a person
absolutely, like, he is evil, full stop.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be clear, the Cold War politics are all over this, so...
Right, but, I mean, he's a comic bookish character, but, like,
yes.
You know, he comes across as absolutely psychopathic, irredeemable.
Yes, which is why the ending for me is so frustrating, because they fight, their robots get destroyed, right? Gary Graham uses his like flying fist thing that's on the ground and shoots him in the dick, and his ship blows up because when you punch a robot in the dick, the cogsaw blows up. That's what happens. And they have this big fight by hand, and they're like using like pieces of metal to fight each other. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, like, we could live, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm Russian." And he's like, "No, we could live, right?" And then they do the little fist thing where it's like, "Oh, the Robot Jox, the Jox fist thing," and that's the end of the movie. And to me, it's like no part of this film has suggested to us that Alexander's getting some kind of redemption. Right? He's a fun character. Don't get me wrong. I like watching him chew scenery in the bars. But Alexander is a violent man. He's psychopathic. He just wants to kill. He loves it. He gets joy out of it. The idea of retiring for him is meaningless. Gary Graham's the opposite. So that scene comes from nowhere. It makes...
If he has a chance to bash somebody's head in with a rock, why would he not take that chance or that opportunity? Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean... You could have done something where it's like the remove of being in a giant robot suit as opposed to smashing somebody over the head with a rock. That could have been a moment of like, oh, wait, this isn't a video game. But, I mean, that would be doing a Shaun where I'm reading more into the script. Like, there's nothing earned about this. There's no arc for this guy. It's like his arc is basically like, for no goddamn reason whatsoever. Yeah, I hear you like that. And then it is the cheesiest 80th of endings, just like smashing thumbs up together. And you're just like, oh, you went there. You did. Yep. And then, credits. Oh, God. Okay.
And no post-credits scene where he picks the rock back up.
There's it
would have redeemed most of the movie in my eyes.
It would have been a better choice. To me... The movie has to end, as written, the movie has to end with Alexander being soundly defeated. Either killed or incapacitated enough where he can't fight anymore and he must reluctantly give up. At least that would be, to me, that would make more sense. Like, Gary Graham just beats him. And, beats him and, like, he just has to give in. He has no choice. He has been roundly defeated.
Beats him, spares his life. That would have been, is like a proof of a better way. Because he never spared anybody else. It's like, we're writing a better movie here in this podcast than this movie deserves.
Well, and this would make the sequel that they were planning make way more sense. So there is a sequel that was being suggested. Gary Graham was willing to do it. The director was willing to do it. I don't know if Kozlov was willing to do it. I didn't check that. The sequel would have had Alexander and Achilles working together to fight off an alien invasion, which... is wild, is basically Pacific Rim, but whatever. But to me, to do that film, you need a different ending than this film has. One where maybe they reluctantly are forced to work together because they just happen to be the best Robot Jox. They're the best Jox. That's it. There's nothing you can do about it. You gotta work together because it's not about like the Confederate and the market anymore. It's quite literally human survival. And they go, well, you've defeated me before. And Gary Graham goes, yes, but I was too sexy for you, so that's all you had to do was just give in.
This is our Independence Day.
And then I would submit that the second film would be a little gay.
It could have been, but I mean, honestly, this film would have been epically better if in the third act they just threw an alien in. Like, oh, now we have to fight the alien together. I would have laughed my ass off, but I would have actually been engaged in the film,
It'd
as
be a fun
opposed to
film.
this half asleep, soul crushing experience that I had.
I was 100% full awake, so I don't know what your problem is.
I mean, we'll get to the other 18 problems. I don't think we have time for.
We don't. No,
we need grades.
We got to get to
We
final
need
thoughts
grades.
and grades. So, Mike, what is your final thought and grade for this movie, please?
I have a lot of grace for creatives, movies, anywhere else where they're going to take a risk. Maybe they fail, but you appreciate the effort that went into it. You appreciate that there was a vision behind it. You appreciate that people gave their all. This piece of shit, okay, even Gary, let's face it, man, he's done a lot better work. The antagonists are all exceptionally one note. The Athena, I can't call her a love interest. I don't know what she is. She doesn't know what she is. One note, one weird dissonant note. Like Tex, did we talk about Tex, who's basically like this character is
a
not
war
just
hero fraud.
Yeah.
like paint by numbers, but they only use 2 colors. Like, it's just that thin. And then he dies by just jumping down a silo going, yeah! Like, that's not what a traitor does. A traitor tries to escape and buy his life away because he wants something better. He's not going to commit suicide for the Russians. Are you kidding me? Anyway, nobody gave their best in this movie, whether it was the catering probably was subpar. Like, this is I seriously was my anger was spent halfway through, and I'm just like, I'm just watching it for this podcast, and that's fine. Okay.
You
Yep, no, we're doing
bastard.
that. Oh, the thumbs at the end. Wow, yeah, you icing on that really shitty cake. So it's an F. Absolute fail across the board.
Fair enough. Okay, what's your grade then?
It's an F. It's
An
a F minus.
F minus. Jesus. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Daniel, final thoughts, grade, go.
Final thought. Michael actually made me think about another way I could imagine this being actually interesting. Again, not the movie we got, but now I'm thinking of a version where Tex was played by Nicolas Cage.
No.
And he had, just went full on crazy Nicolas Cage, because Tex's last line is effectively, I'll see you in hell. And then he jumps off. And that's pretty much the first half of Nicolas Cage's last line in Renfield and in Longlegs. I'll see you in hell. And then it's Hail Satan. If he would have done that, it would have made a lot more sense of why Tex is the way he was, and we would have had Nick Cage. That's my final thought.
I mean,
and my
Nick
grade,
Cage will improve any movie.
That's fair.
D minus. I don't know, D or D minus.
You got to pick.
I'll go with D.
Got it. So it comes
My
to
first
me
thought.
to salvage this movie from your cruelty. Look, there are problems with this movie, I will admit. Just as there are problems with other really great films that other people hate that I happen to love, like Mac and Me, which is virtually almost a perfect film. And is definitely a reflection of American culture in a way that I find very compelling. And also, fuck McDonald's, so whatever. But the thing I will say about this film is it's 1989. It's not an animated film. It involves giant robots that fight. It involves a bunch of fairly fit individuals running around punching and doing kicks and stuff. It involves politics and Cold War politics. If you get Cold War politics involved in my sci-fi, I'm very interested because I find it interesting, and it's also weirdly prescient because we live in the world that we live in now. It is a film that involves some very attractive people, and some people that probably shouldn't be attractive but weirdly are alluring, like Gary Graham, who I wouldn't say is like a Hollywood hottie, and yet for some reason I'm kind of attracted to him, even though I'm pretty sure he smokes cigarettes. And for all those reasons, plus the opening sequence, plus all of the like different ideas that are floating in here, this is for me a far more interesting film than it is not an interesting film. And for that reason, I will give it a B.
Wow.
I'd watch this
Oh
again.
my goodness.
Wow.
Not even
This
a question.
is wrong.
I want to take your class, Professor, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna pass.
That's some great inflation.
I'm giving it a B. I'm sorry. I love
That's
this
a
movie.
curve. That is a curve. Wow.
What is our average?
Paul's
that travesty?
doing it in chat. He'll tell us in a minute what the average is.
It's probably around a D. Like you guys average out to a C. I gave it an F minus.
It's not good. I will say that. I'm pretty sure we end up in D territory. D plus is what Paul says. We're on a D plus. I don't think it deserves a D plus, but you know, whatever. I've watched. Look, I just want to remind you, Jen and I have at different times when Jen used to do the show, at different times for different films, one of us have fallen asleep during the movie, woken up later, not realizing how much time has passed, and still been like, oh, okay, I'm still in the movie. On 2 different films, this has happened. So I want to be clear. This is a film where I think if you fell asleep, you might be slightly confused about how we got to point A to point B. There's some films we've watched where you can fall asleep and it still makes, it makes about as much sense as it did before. So,
I mean, I agree with you there, but the caveat for me would be, I'm not sure I would have cared.
Fair point. That is a fair point.
You know,
that's not the only thing that can tank a movie.
That is fair. That is fair.
I couldn't rouse myself on that one to give it a.
Well, we'll get you with cats probably.
I look forward to that. I think it needs to be a double long episode, and we need like costumes.
We all need cock saws.
Saws.
The official cat's cock saw.
The official cat's cock saw. You're right.
Little ears.
Magical mystery cock saw. Yeah.
There we go.
All right, folks.
Wow.
That's the end of the podcast. So follow us, send your questions, let us know what you think. We're at scifi on pretty much every social media. We obviously have an email, scifi@gmail.com, if you want to lay suggestions on us. You got movie suggestions, whatever. We have a link tree for all of our links, including our newsletter at linktr.ee/scifiandfanty. And so, find us in all the places. We're on most of the social media. I'm at ShaunDuke.net, and then Alphabet Streams, where I normally am on Twitch, but presently only Scifi and Fanty is running every Friday at 7 p.m. Central. I will get back to streaming at another time. I have a Patreon, and I'm on Blue Sky and all those places. My link tree is just /ShaunDuke.
You can find me, Daniel, at reading1000lives.com. That's the number 1000 lives. And I'm also reading 1000 Lives on Blue Sky.
All right. And you can find me at michaeljmartinez.net and on Amazon. Got an author page. Buy my books. It'd be awesome. Thanks. And on social media, Mike Martinez 72 on Blue Sky. Michael J. Martinez. I have an author Facebook page. I will get around to doing an Instagram author page. But if you find me there and request, maybe I'll accept it. I don't know. I'm really just talking about life and kids and that sort of thing there. Cool. And this was fun. Seriously, we haven't done this in a while, so thank you for having me on. Man.
Thanks for coming back to this.
Yeah, it was great.
It's crazy. It's fun.
You survived another one.
I still need to shake this ennui, but weeks
Don't
after
worry.
I've seen this thing, it's just haunting me.
You're welcome. You're super welcome.
Thumbs
All
up.
right. So, given the state of this show, as is required by the Scifi and Fanty bylaws that everybody signed, I have to make this awkward. So, this show has led me to what will be our new conditions for this show, which will be that every torture cinema film will now be solved by us engaging in single-handed combat in cardboard robots that we design around ourselves, where we will cover ourselves like Gundam in cardboard and fight. And so that's how all future shows will be sorted.
Are the weapons we use cardboard as well, or can I get a
Yes.
lead pipe?
No lead pipes, because we cannot have lead in in our bloodstreams, because lead is toxic.
If I was using one, that would be the least of your worries. But I get it. So we'll use like the cardboard tubes from like wrapping paper.
You know what? Some of us might have been involved in things like Amped Guard or the Society for Creative Anachronism. We could use pool noodles with a bamboo rod up the middle. We could hit each other with that.
Well, before pool noodles, we took the PCB plumbing and the insulation and then duct taped around it, and that was fun. Let's do that.
We could do that. And as Jeff in chat is correctly pointing out to us right now, we can also make cardboard cock sauce, which both gets us the reference that has been throughout this film, but also gives us lovely alliteration.
Cardboard cock sauce is the name of my next album.
Excellent. Awesome. And on that note, awkward ending and scene.